President, thank you for inviting me here in this extremely important meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Greece, welcome to Athens. I would like to congratulate the Hellenic Parliamentary Budget Office for the initiative to host this meeting in our country. It provides me with the opportunity to share some thoughts on the priorities of our fiscal and economic policy. As you know, over the last years, the world has faced consecutive major adverse shocks. Although our economies have proved resilient, these shocks have left, of course, their mark. Low growth levels, persistent inflation, and rising public debt. Within this challenging environment, the Greek economy has emerged, I think, as a success story. We have achieved the fastest fiscal consolidation in the Eurozone's history, with the debt to GDP ratio declining by 44 percentage points from 260% of GDP in 2020 to 162 of GDP in 2023. We have restored primary surpluses 1 year earlier than expected. And we have regained investment grade, a milestone achievement following a series of credit rating upgrades. This success occurred against the background of strong economic performance. We are recording growth rates 4 or 5 times higher than the EU average. Unemployment has fallen and now is to practically pre-crisis levels in Greece. Exports of goods and services have almost doubled and are increasingly diversified. Real investment volume increased by more than 40% since 2019. We continue to have an investment gap, of course, but the progress is here. How did we manage to turn the tide and transform Greece from black sheep to a best performer? As I have said many times, this success was not the result of luck. It was the result of the sound economic policy pursued by the government of New Democracy, the government of Kyriakos Mitsotakis, over the last 5 years. A policy which was based on fiscal prudence, of course, to restore market confidence. We learned the lessons of the past decade. This policy was based on tax reductions as well to improve competitiveness of our economy. And of course, it was based on structural reforms to improve the business environment and attract investments. Looking into the future, we are determined to follow the same path, the same policies that led to these impressive results, accelerating, of course, our pace and pressing ahead with all the necessary structural reforms. Fiscal prudence will, of course, remain a central pillar of our policy. Over the next years, we expect to have primary surpluses above 2% of GDP. And public debt is expected to decline further, reaching 146% of GDP in 2025. Are these forecasts Over-optimistic? Judging by experience so far, the opposite is more likely. In recent years, our economy has systematically exceeded the forecasts, and our goal is to continue positively surprising everyone, both inside and outside our country. I would also like to make clear that our commitment to fiscal discipline is independent of the EU fiscal rules. We firmly believe that sound public finances are a precondition for sustainable growth, and that markets exercise strong discipline on unsustainable policies. As I said in the ECOFIN meeting, where we have decided the new fiscal rules, I underlined that regardless of the final decision, Greece will continue to follow the fiscal discipline path, because we know that except the surveillance of Brussels, we have the surveillance of the investors, of the markets, of rating agencies. As I said, we learned the lessons of the previous decades. But fiscal prudence does not only mean matching public spending to the available resources. It also entails making the most of those resources by setting the right priorities and increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of public spending. That is why, since 2022, the Greek budget is accompanied with performance information for the evaluation of each program. The application of performance budgeting provides detailed information on the expenditures of each ministry per program and introduces a coherent performance evaluation framework through target setting and KPIs. As such, it links the flows of financial and human resources to the results produced, and therefore allows general government entities to monitor the progress towards achieving the goals and targets set in their annual action plan. A key factor in this direction is also the development of the new financial management information system, the GovERP. We are preparing in cooperation with the Ministry of Digital Governance, the ministry Mr. Hatzidakis served till the recent elections in 2023. And? Regarding taxation, our policy will focus on tackling tax evasion and tax avoidance. This is important not only for reasons of fairness, but also because it allows to simultaneously increase public revenues and decrease the tax wedge on businesses and households. We have already recorded some notable successes on that front over the last years, partly thanks to the increase in electronic transactions following the COVID pandemic. For example, the VAT gap has been reduced from 23% in 2018 to 15% in 2023. Total tax revenues were 9.1% higher in 2023 compared with 2022 without any increase in tax rates. 9% higher without increasing taxes. But we still have a lot of work to do. That is why last December we have passed a tax reform with 11 key measures aiming at reducing further tax evasion. These measures include a new fair taxation system for self-employed based on presumed income, minimum wage as benchmark. Similar systems exist in other European countries like France and Italy. Further restrictions on the use of cash, expansion in the use of new technologies, more effective and transparent controls. We are now focusing on implementing this legislation, and we have very good results. For example, the connection of PBOs with cash machines was seen as a very difficult exercise. Some advise us to postpone its full rollout. Today, 90% of businesses have completed the process or are very near to completing it. The third pillar of our policy, I refer to fiscal prudence and to fighting tax evasion. The third pillar is the continuation of our efforts to transform the Greek economy into a model of fast, extrovert, and inclusive growth. Our government has developed an ambitious and comprehensive reform program to that effect. A program that includes, and I don't refer only to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. The program includes improving the efficiency of the justice system, raising the performance of the civil service, improving education at all levels, developing renewable energy sources, and accelerating the digital transition. Focusing more closely on the reforms we are now pursuing within the Ministry of Economy and Finance, there are 4 areas that merit attention. First, we continue our efforts to improve the prospects of our banking system to ensure that businesses have access to financing. Over the last 12 months, we introduced measures to further reduce the stock of NPLs. We enhanced competition in the banking system by allowing non-banking institutions to provide loans, something that is happening in many other European countries. Most importantly, we proceeded rapidly with the disinvestment program of the state from its holdings in systemic banks. As a result, 3 systemic banks are now totally under private control, 100%. We have had very significant interest from many investors, and that is why we want to complete the process very soon. It was a vote of confidence to our banking sector, the interest expressed by both domestic and international investors, as regards the disinvestment process of our 4 systemic banks. Second, we'll continue our efforts to diversify and modernize the Greek economy by further developing sectors where we have comparative advantage, supporting innovation and encouraging our companies to grow. In this context, we will soon introduce legislation that provides incentives, fiscal incentives and financial incentives for business mergers and for R&D and innovation. Third, we are implementing a comprehensive plan for the exploitation of public property through concessions and privatizations. Over the last year, in 11 months' time, we completed 10 different transactions of a strategic nature, including the 4 banks, as I mentioned above, which brought in more than 7 billion euros in revenue. I would like to emphasize here that we are not expecting, we are not only expecting public revenue through this process, we want it to act as a driver of growth and investment for the Greek economy, creating wealth and jobs. In this context, we will soon introduce legislation that will fundamentally transform the Hellenic Corporation of Assets and Participation into a development pillar for the Greek economy, in cooperation with ESM and the European Commission, by establishing a new national investment fund, a sovereign Greek fund, and by granting more flexibility to the subsidiary companies of the fund based on the successful precedent of our electricity provider. Fourth, we'll make full use of all funds available to Greece through European financing programs, most notably the RRF and cohesion policy. I have often compared those two financing instruments to a European Marshall Plan. Greece will receive 57 billion euros until 2027, and if we include the additional funds that will be mobilized through national public and private resources, the total amount exceeds 80 billion euros for the same period. We are already front-runners in the absorption of RRF, having received almost 15 billion, and a few days ago we have submitted an application for another 2.3 billion euros. We are also among the top performers in the absorption of cohesion funds, but we want to further speed up absorption and strengthen transparency. That is why we will proceed to a major reform of our public investment program. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 5 years, the Greek economy has achieved a remarkable economic turnaround and emerged as a pleasant surprise for Europe. We have proven that we can resist to populist temptation of loose fiscal policy. We have proven that we can undertake ambitious reforms irrespective of political cost. I believe that what we are witnessing in Greece today can be described as a common sense revolution. The populist rhetoric which had dominated the public discourse is now out of fashion, I would say. It has been replaced by a rational approach which focuses on solutions and results. This is what the government believes, and that is why this government was elected twice, having less promises than all its opponents. And this is the way we are going to proceed, combining fiscal prudence with a business-friendly approach. This is a common sense recipe for our economy. We are condemned to succeed. Failure cannot be an option. We learn the mistakes of the past. We resist to populist temptation, and we'll continue implementing a credible and serious economic policy mix, and together with political stability which people secure in the elections, will continue surprising, I'm sure, everybody in the markets, and Greece will be a success as regards our economy in the years to come. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day here in Athens.